There is one thing needed for you to become a better painter, and I don't necessarily mean becoming an advanced or professional painter. I am also talking about moving from beginner to intermediate. Whichever skill level you find yourself in, it is common to aspire for better results. But if we paint all our models the same way, we are bound to hit a wall. So today, I'll do that which I haven't done in a long time, and that is to push myself. There are techniques and paints which might make our life easier and give us better results with less effort. Such is the case, for example, with speed paints, but you can go so far just using them. To paint today's models, I'll push both my skill with the brush as well as my decisions color-wise. While complex, this model can be divided into three main elements: the gold, the cloth, and the skin. So after establishing a starting point with a base coat and a wash, for which I diluted a darker color 3:1 with water, I used a fourth wash of dark brown to blackline the recesses where these three areas meet with each other, creating a darker shadow which will separate them from one another and increasing the readability of the model. Due to the organic shapes, this blackline may not end up as precise as a pin wash, which is commonly seen on vehicles or space marine models, to name a few examples. But no worries, any spillovers will be covered up as I continue working. When it came to painting the gold, I already had a base coat as well as a green wash laid down which tuned down its brightness. Logically, I reestablished it by going back to my initial gold, and thanks to the rich detail, fixed it up with some simple overbrushing, making sure I didn't have too much paint on my brush which could get into the recesses. But as I said, I have to push myself if I want to strive for a better result. So following up with a lighter gold, I once again overbrushed some brighter highlights over on the sharper edges, as well as, for example, the top half of the flatter areas. But I didn't stop there. Every layer we paint builds upon each other to create a more complex look. So back to the washes I went, but this time using both a sepia as well as a rich dark green, mostly leaving the sepia over on the top half as I did with the highlights, yet allowing it to mix wet on wet with the green wash I applied towards the bottom, leaving me with a gold which had variations in its brightness and was also rich in color. The cloth came next. Painting the folds and raised details was easy work using the side of my brush, but as I went brighter I would need other ways of adding more detail. As of now, I can pick out the edges with this technique in no time and pretty effectively, but if I were to use a brighter color, a line with the same width would cover up the work underneath. So if I cannot go thinner, I would have to go shorter, breaking up the highlight as I moved towards the bottom. I also helped myself by using a number 1 brush, which I rarely use on surfaces this big, and with it easily created very thin lines which I chose not to extend all the way to the bottom, this way creating a darker bottom half and a more detailed top half. The cloth was the element out of the three which I wanted to catch the least attention, for which choosing a greyish tone helped a lot. But as I went brighter with the highlights, they began to stand out too much. To solve this, I went back to one of the greenish greys I used at the start, and diluted it 3:1 with water. However, I wasn't planning to apply it as a wash. Instead, this thin transparent layer of paint would be spread evenly along the surface, and filter all the colors together to a closer tone, a process more commonly known as a glaze. The skin was certainly the most complex part of the model, but I didn't look for a trick or technique which would help me tackle it faster, and instead took it one step at a time, beginning with a callback to my dead skin tutorial, applying a wash of red over the surface, but halfway through its drying, taking a wet brush to clean off the wash on some places. This will result in random patches of red, which would represent a mottled skin look or inflammation. While it looked better on some places than others, my aim was to, alongside the starting base coat and wash, create a rich base of colors which would poke through in between the highlights I would paint after. Highlights for which I took no shortcuts. I used lines and dots to create volume and texture, working my way through the model slowly, making sure I didn't miss any spots. Any recesses, crevices or blanks I didn't highlight would leave behind not just a darker tone, but red here, dark green there, even the brown from the black lining. Once done, I was very pleased with the look, and normally I would stop here, but that's the thing, I want to push myself to improve. And since I was loving those patches of red directly below the greens, I applied an overall glaze of red in the same manner as the cloth. This resulted in my already red areas to reach a deeper color, while the green areas could still be considered green, but the hue had leaned much closer to red. Not only did I highlight everything again, which was a test of patience, but even did a further highlight step within a reduced area. The key to get through paint jobs like this one, apart from some relaxing background music, is to paint something you really like. I wouldn't do this for every single model I paint, but just from this one I've acquired a lot of experience when it comes to painting smaller details, not only when it comes to precision, but also speed. And when I look at the end result, I wish that every one of my models looked like this. But while I may not count with the time to do so, this model is proof that I'm capable of it. There were only a pair of details left to tackle. One was the ooze dripping from some parts of the model. I gave those an ice yellow base coat, followed by a washing of ice yellow with a pinch of burnt red, and finally a highlight over any raised volumes. For the open wounds, I simply diluted some blood effects with water and used it to deepen the red as well as increase the glossiness. Thank you for watching. I hope you found the video helpful, both as a paint guide as well as on the topic of becoming a better painter. And a special thanks to everyone who left a comment on my last community post. I really appreciate it.